It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews, and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf.
Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 223 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as I always am, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the U.S., Mr. Gary Action Jackson. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in last week to our show with Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow, the platinum album that's turning 50 years old here. A real stretch into jazz and experimental funk and fusion for Jeff that had some really amazing results. And our recent first concert memories with our friend Farmer John from Vinyl Relics talking about a very exciting day trying to get to his first Who concert in Toronto. But there's another album celebrating its 50th on March 28th. And that's Bad Company's sophomore effort, Straight Shooter. Now, the debut album by Bad Company the year before, and we did do a review of that last year, was pretty amazing. It had huge radio hits. It had good deep tracks. It had album-oriented radio hits that are still played to this day, from Seagull to the title track to Moving On to Can't Get Enough, Rock Steady, Ready for Love. This was a stellar debut that sold over 5 million copies. Following up was not going to be easy, but Mick Ralphs and Paul Rodgers were starting to write more together. They were also writing individually, as was drummer Simon Kirke, who got 2 songs on the album, which are maybe a little bit of a left turn versus what you would think of when you think of Bad Company. But it eventually sold 3 million copies, so it may not have topped the first one, but obviously they're still going strong, still working their way through the world and starting to get bigger gigs. And we'll get into all that here on the episode. But first, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. We always love to mention that we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of over 100 different shows. You can learn more at pantheonpodcast.com or follow on socials at PantheonPods. And I have to encourage you to go visit our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, who's based in the UK, folks, but they ship all over the world. They procure collections from all over the world, and they have over 250,000 items in stock. And I've seen some people buying some really sweet first edition records from there lately, which is huge. It's always great for your record collection, and it helps support our show. But here's the thing. Don't just go buy one treasure. Go buy everything your heart desires. Buy that rare picture disc. Buy that foreign single. Buy that Japanese album with the extra tracks. Buy them all, and then use code UGLY to save 10% off one entire order. Yes, it's a one-time code, but you can use it on one order, not just one item. So for all you record collectors, go hit rarevinyl.com, use that code UGLY, save 10%. Your record collection will thank you. Now back to Straight Shooter, songs like Good Lovin' Gone Bad and Feel Like Making Love. Their first 2 singles became radio hits, but Shooting Star, the Paul Rodgers is an epic story, classic story of rock and roll lifestyle, and it really shows that the band is coming into their own. Some great riffs on here, sing-along songs, and there's even some B-sides and lost tracks that maybe could have gone on the album. And we'll go through all that. So let's get going. We're talking about Bad Company's Straight Shooter as it turns 50 here on The Wolf. So I was pleased to see this morning. I wake up, my bladder gets me up earlier than I want to because I'm of a certain age. And I look at my emails, of course, and one of them's from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame telling me that the 2025 nominees are in. And here they are. And top of the list, of course, it's in alphabetical order, is Bad Company. And I thought, yeah, I think Bad Company should probably be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know Paul Rodgers should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's a good thing. I also saw Chubby Checker on there, and I was just shocked. Like, Chubby Checker is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, I know he only had a few songs, but I thought all those 50s guys were in a long, long time ago.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I honestly think they kind of keep people off just so you can have this spread Because if you put everybody in, then it's like, after a while, you get to the point where it's like, who cares?
I feel like we've already gotten to that point, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a couple
Who
that
else
make
is on
sense. Okay, so Billy Idol, I think Black Crows, we'll get some good votes. Joy Division / New Order, White Stripes, Soundgarden, Fish, Oasis. But then, Outkast, Mariah Carey, Joe Cocker, yeah, okay, maybe. I don't know. Cyndi Lauper. I'm like, I don't know about, So anyway, I mean, they obviously don't care what we think. And like Don Jameson said when they came on, it's not that it's, so horrible that they put people from different genres and different eras in. It's more like you don't get upset of who's in. It's you get mad for who is not in. But I can get mad about who's in. LL Cool J's been in. Bad Company's not. Okay, that makes.
Well, you can get
sense.
mad at the people that are in because of the people that they keep out.
I can get mad for anything, okay? And as an American, I feel like that's all anybody does anyway. They don't really hear anybody else's opinion and don't care what anyone else thinks. And I guess I'm starting to get that way. The longer I'm here, the more I get that way. But let's not go down that evil, dark path. Let's talk about Bad Company and their second album, Straight Shooter, as it turns 50, with the roll of the dice here on the front cover. And we did Bad Company's first record last year, and that was a big deal. I mean, it was a great debut. It went 5 times platinum in the US, just gold in the UK and Canada, which is like 100,000 and 50,000 each, respectively, if I'm not mistaken. But this one, again, was much bigger in America. 3 million in sales, and I'm sure some of that is on the back of the first album doing so well, but same thing in the UK and Canada, gold, 100,000 and 50,000. So they were really striking a chord here in America, just like their label mates on Swan song Led Zeppelin, who may have been popular in the UK, but not like the phenomenon they were in the US.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in a lot of ways the business model is the same. I don't think they really cared about the UK sales. Like, I mean, if they did, fine, but really these guys were built to be an American act.
Obviously, yeah, and they did really well here. Although, I mean, it went to 3 in all 3 countries. Like, that's where it went. 3 on Billboard, 3 on UK, 3 in Canada, and did well in a few other places too. But so they got a full head of steam now, right? Their first album sold very well. They did some successful tours. Now you got to come back with your second album, which is usually when there's kind of a big dip. Only thing is, because this is a supergroup, there shouldn't be as big a dip because this isn't their second album. I mean, Free made, I don't know, was it 6 albums, something like that. Mott the Hoople made a bunch of albums. Boz Burrell had been in a few bands, including King Crimson, which is kind of shocking to me, but because he was a guitar player, they needed a singer, so he came in to sing in King Crimson for their Islands record. They also needed a bass player because their bass player left at the last second or whatever, so he just kind of moved over to the bass. I'm like, in a band like King Crimson, you can't just start a new instrument. It's too intricate. It's too hard to play. You've got to be a real pro at what you do. But I think Boz Burrell did get better at the bass over time, and I think you can hear some of his progress on this record.
Yeah, and you were talking about the sophomore slump. And even though these guys have been around for a while, this was a very short turnaround between record 1 and record 2. And in looking at their catalog, they were at this point in time, they were really kind of blowing and going here. They had 74, 75, Run with the Pack was 76. Then you do Burning Sky in 77. And what was after that?
Desolation Angels, 79.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just they're really just working hard at this point in time, and to come back with an album like this, to me, it's pretty impressive because it doesn't really let up on the momentum.
No, and not every song on here is an enormous hit or a fantastic song, but as far as American radio goes, you got 3 that are still to this day staples on classic rock. And that's, I mean, on an 8-song record, that's about all you can ask for the most part. I mean, I think they had recycled some songs before, and Mick had taken some stuff he'd maybe noodle on and Mott the Hoople or whatever. And Mick and Paul were starting to get to know each other a little bit better, right? They do bring in their own songs, but they are starting to be able to write together a little bit more here. And it kind of shows. But also Simon Kirke, the drummer, and he is more than a drummer as far as talent and songwriting ability goes. And Mick Ralphs said as much during, an interview with them. But on the first album, for the most part, everything was a Rodgers or Ralphs solo write with a couple of them together. Mm-hmm. And then Kirke co-wrote Bad Company with Paul Rodgers, where on this one, there are 3 Rodgers Ralphs co-writes. There's a couple solo Rodgers, 1 solo Ralphs, and then 2 Simon Kirke solo writes. So he's feeling himself as a songwriter, and I know he can play a little bit of guitar. I don't know if he can play the piano or not. He is more than a drummer, and I think he descends from a bit of aristocracy in the English countryside.
Oh, well, that's nice.
That must be nice.
That must be super cool to not have to worry about stuff like money.
Yeah. And now he has like some lovely daughters who are actors and musicians in their own right, living in New York, yes, growing up living in New York, that must, I mean, there's some seriously rough areas of New York, there's no doubt about it, but that's not where they live.
No.
Like one of them even put out like a poetry books, and it was like hailed as, oh, what's it like living in high class New York? I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's where you're from there, no doubt about it. And recording engineer Ron Nevison, who we just spoke about, who was helping out the boys in Led Zeppelin on Physical Graffiti around this time. Mm-hmm. Because, hey, he's part of, if you're at Swan Song, you're kind of part of the family. Oh, you're going to help this band? Yeah, go help these guys too,
Yeah.
But, I mean, Bad Company, their first album, came out in May of 1974. And then 3 months later, they start in on this one.
Right.
They went to Clearwell Castle to go out there to kind of get out of town there, just like Led Zeppelin does. They did some mixing at Air Studios in London. And, of course, the cover with these dice on it is by Hypnosis, who's probably most famous for Pink Floyd, but, also did Zeppelin records as well. So it's kind of like they're just riding the Zeppelin wave. If not musically, at least from a business perspective, they sure are.
Yeah, I don't think you can downplay or you can forget about that. They were in a part of this machine, the Swan Song, Peter Grant. Yeah, you had all of these opportunities available to you, producers, marketing, I'm sure tour spots and tour dates. The album was strong, but I think you can't downplay that as part of their success.
Yeah, no, but I mean, and just like Physical Graffiti may have been the first album to ship platinum, this was gold within a month of its release in the U.S., and it's released March 28th, and by the end of April 1975, it's gold on its way to going triple platinum. So having that kind of business acumen of Peter Grant behind you, not to mention Jimmy Page and all his experience, it's like, yeah, man, we did the right thing signing up here. And it must be great from the guys in Zeppelin who can sit around and make money, not having to go on the road, not having even to sell their own albums. They can make a little bit off of these guys as well.
Right. And I'm sure it's cool for them to say, hey, this band that we have on our label is very successful. So then that means we're very astute business people also to pick these guys up. So, yeah, Zeppelin was riding pretty high at this point in time.
Yeah, as they should have been. As you can hear all about on episodes, 218 and 219, all about Physical Graffiti.
But to your point before, it's interesting that now the songwriting has kind of changed up, and to include 2 songs from Kirke is an interesting mix-up also on this record.
Yeah, that's right. And so the reviews come in, and Rolling Stone's pretty positive about it. Robert Christgau, who just hates everybody from the Village Voice, thought it was better than the first one. I wouldn't go that far, but I do think it's a solid album. There's one note in here I didn't understand, and it was from Ed Naha of Rolling Stone that said Simon Kirke's Anna was as bad as it was when it was first recorded, but that Weep No More, his other song, showed that he was progressing as a songwriter. I was looking, where was Anna first recorded? Because I looked through like the free albums. And unless it was a B-side or something, it wasn't on any of the free albums. It certainly wasn't on the first record. It was written by Kirke. So I don't know where it was released or recorded first. If anyone out there has information, please send it to us because I'd love to know that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it couldn't have been that bad. Why would they have recycled it? And I don't think it's not the strongest track on the album, but I don't think it's that bad.
No, and it's a bit of a ballad. I mean, I actually like it better than Weep No More, I think. So we'll kind of get into that. The fact of the matter is the big singles, Good Lovin' Gone Bad and Feel Like Making Love, did fine for them. And then Shooting Star, it may not have been a single, an official single, because it's over 6 minutes long. But American rock radio attached itself to that in a big way. Mm-hmm. And so these songs are all over American rock radio, and for the most part always will be.
I think it's kind of interesting too that you were talking about the cover of the two dice, which are cool, but it says Bad Company on there, not Bad Co. like on the first record. Like they've changed up. They don't use the same logo, the same font. So I don't know why they decided to actually spell out the name of the band instead of using that. Because, usually you've got that brand associated now. Why would you go and change it? Interesting.
Yeah, well, maybe they didn't put much thought into the first one.
Yeah, and maybe they think like it's if the thing is called Bad Company, you actually need to spell out company so that all of us dummies can figure out what you're doing.
Well, and of course the first one was Bad Company by Bad Company. So you just put Bad Company, that's the name of the band, that's the name of the album. They put the Straight Shooter name, right under Bad Company there.
Yeah.
And so maybe it just looked better with the album name underneath it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We could ask the guys in Hypnosis about that, I suppose. Or the guys in the band. Most of them anyway. Most of them are still alive. Is Mick Ralphs still alive?
I believe
yes, he is. Yeah. I hadn't heard that he died. He's about to turn 81 if he can make it to the end of March. If he can make it to the 50th anniversary of this album coming out, he'll be about to be 81.
Hi, I'm Deborah Bonham.
And I am the Irish werewolf in England, Peter Bullock.
And you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
But let's jump in. Let's start doing some tracks here. Good Lovin' Gone Bad. Hey, Mick Ralphs, right? I always liked this one growing up. What say you?
Yeah, I like this song. I think it's a great way to start the record. You always kind of have that apprehension of how the sophomore record is going to go. You might as well hit them with something big on the intro. It's the riff is nice and fat. It's a good way to get you into this record.
Yeah, and it's a straight ahead rocker. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It was backed with Whiskey Bottle, which we can talk about here in a bit. It came out in March of 75, a little bit, I think, before the release of the album. The album may have had different release dates, in the US versus UK, but it's a fun one too. I mean, Malcolm Dome, the late rock writer and critic, called it their fifth best song ever. Call it a powerful statement of a good time intent. Love you for that kind of wording there, Malcolm. Yeah. But it didn't do amazingly well. I mean, 31 in the UK, 36 in the US. It's kind of one of those that maybe in the charts at the time in 1975, maybe it wasn't fitting in.
Got all that lost. Great with
what's going on. Yeah, but then because of the adaptation of classic rock radio into the 80s, it's like, yeah, this is a classic Bad Company song, and it's pretty good.
I'm a man. I got my pride. I don't need no woman to hurt me inside. I need a love like any other. Yeah, so go on and leave me for another. Good loving gone bad. Yeah. Good loving gone bad. Good loving gone bad. Yeah.
Now my notes are great classic riff, and Paul comes out singing with power on this one.
I thought I saw a note somewhere about people saying that he didn't have he had a great blues voice, but not a great rock voice. I don't think that I agree with that at all. I think he does a good job on the song of really coming out and singing heavy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. He doesn't break it out all the time. But
right. But he's got it there.
Yeah, and he's got it might be really good for ballads. It is good for blues, but I think he can rock out well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little surprising me because this is a Ralphs right that it's not an amazing solo. It does build and it fits the song, but it fades into the slowdown there. And I don't think he's a great guitar player, to be honest with you.
What kind of guitar player are you talking about?
A soloing guitar.
Okay, yeah, I think he's a real solid like rhythm guy.
Yeah.
But if you had another dude who could melt some faces, it would have been a very different texture on here. Because yeah, I mean, I just have decent solo. Just kind of a. I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
It's not horrible, but it's not like wow, that's hot. I think that's it.
But the riff is classic.
Yeah,
the riff is great, right?
Yeah. He just needs a little. Shred.
He's not great with the fiddly bits, as they call it in the UK.
Correct.
And I put classic 70s rock here, maybe the epitome of it. If it's like you said, what is 70s rock? You're like, just listen to this by Bad Company right here. I mean, everyone's kind of got that stories like, I got a woman and she's awesome. And, she gives me the good loving. It's great. And then it's like, okay.
And then,
And then, I hear you knocking hard upon my door. Ain't no way I'm going to answer that, because cheating is one thing and lying is another. And when I say it's over, that's it. I'm going to quit. So, because I'm a man, I got my pride. I don't need a woman to hurt me inside. So, yeah, this is about a cheating woman and a lying woman. And people can relate. So, well, some people can. Men, straight men. I'm sure gay women can too. Anyway, but no, I like that. I like that one. Good classic stuff and a great way to kind of kick off the album.
Right.
Now, the second one, Feel Like Making Love, this is one Paul and Mick wrote together. It is also the second single that came out in June of 75. So they are front loading this with the singles here. Yeah. But that makes sense. And it went to number 10 in the US and number 20 in the UK. So this is more of a hit, really, even than Good Love and Going Bad, certainly from the charts standpoint. And was backed with Wildfire Woman, which is on the second side of the album. Big fat riff on this one. I mean, it starts off a little, Yeah.
It kind of, you were slowing down here at the beginning, but then it definitely picks up. And the note that I have is, so Rodgers did that tour with Queen. Right, which seemed a little strange to me when I heard it, but I actually really enjoyed the two of them together. And to watch Brian May play that bump, and it was because that's not what he plays. He plays the fiddly bits quite a bit on the Queen records. So to watch him play that like straight ahead, just easy for him, I would imagine chunky riffs. It was kind of funny, and he seemed like he really got into it when they were playing those songs.
Yeah, you got to have fun playing that kind of song, and you're stretching yourself. You're not just playing your own stuff; you're playing other people. So you get. I feel, and Brian's such a kind of polite guy. I feel like he's the kind of guy who's like, I gotta play his songs right. Like I gotta do a better job on his songs than I even do on my own songs, right? Because you can kind of go on autopilot mode on your own, but you want to focus in and make sure you do someone else's right. So yeah, you start off, it's acoustic.
Yeah.
And you're like, baby, when I think about you, you're like, okay, maybe this isn't such great. And then they come in with it's a classic, and there's not a whole lot to the lyrics, but it's a classic rock song. It is a fun song. Everyone likes that big fat riff. But again, the solo isn't fantastic, but it does fit the song.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's almost like they told him, you have to do a solo, and he said, all right, here you go.
Now the end solo, like at the end, it's a little hotter than the middle one, but it just kind of fits the song. I'm guessing that it's one they sped up a little bit live, which is kind of natural. A lot of times bands will play things just a little faster live to get the groove going. I just get the feeling that this is one, it was just a couple of beats faster live would be my guess.
Of my yesterday, I would wrap you in the heaven, but really dying on the way. Feel like making love.
They did have, I don't know, was it a special edition or an anniversary edition? Oh, it was the 2015 reissue. So that would have been the 40th anniversary edition. They have the whole album. And then on the second disc, they have, like demos or early takes or B-sides, maybe a couple songs that didn't get released during those sessions, whatever. And there is, instead of the guitar solo, there's a harmonica jam in there.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of an interesting listen if you want to take a look at that one. Instead of the guitar solo, there's a harmonica, which I believe is Rodgers.
Yeah, that would make sense. Interesting. It is cool to hear the other takes on the song, and then you decided, nah, you know what, leave the harmonica out, put the guitar back in.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
It's, rock band. You got to have the guitar solo in the middle there. But I liked it. I liked the harmonica version. Next up is the first Simon Kirke write, and that's Weep No More. Kind of a weird beginning.
It definitely takes a hard left turn on you. Because, you've got this kind of dramatic intro with the piano and the strings and, this big production number. You're like, okay, where are we going with this? And then, bonk, it kind of gets pulled way back to a much different sounding track.
Yeah, and as much as I like Simon Kirke, I don't think the lyrics are great on this one. My note is there's a lot of production for a song that's not really that good, including like strings and stuff like that. And like, did they get George Martin in to kind of put that together? I don't know.
So maybe did you have this and they said, well, we need a little more zhuzh here at the front. So let's put something like that in. I doubt that was part of the original write.
I don't know. They did have some songs that didn't make the album, one of which I think is killer. We'll talk about later. But I don't know. I feel like he came in with this thing and then they really bumped it up. And they say, on the credits, Paul plays the piano and that Ralphs plays like the synths.
Okay.
So when you hear organ or something like that, that's probably coming from Ralphs. It's like, Mary, don't you weep no more, 'cause I got your letter today. Pack my bag, I'm on my way. So don't you weep no more. Don't you weep no more. Okay. Now dry your eyes. Don't you shed no tear. The sun is rising. Put away your fears. Well, I know I once done you wrong. I want to say I'm sorry, and I'm coming back home. And that's kind of it. That's like all the words in the song, basically.
Don't you weep no more.
You knew they weren't going to release this as a single, but you probably we need ballads. We need like game changers on the album.
Right.
And it's not a horrible song.
No.
It kind of speeds up at the end, which is weird for a drummer to allow them to do that to like a ballad kind of thing. It's an odd one in the catalog.
Yeah, I'm going to say I was not real familiar with this track coming into this record. And I like it because it's different. And I think you get that when you don't have people writing all together. You get somebody else's just take on this track. So it's an interesting departure, let's say, for the record.
And let's leave the record there because we've got a much better song to move on to, Shooting Star by Paul Rodgers. This is a fantastic song, I think. And it was not a single. And I don't know if it was they just didn't want to trim it down, because in the mid 70s, you can't have a 6+ minute single, right? I mean,
right. Yeah.
Hotel California would come out the next year and the Eagles had to fight tooth and nail to let them keep the dueling guitars at the end, which stretched it over 6 minutes. Like, you can't have a 6-minute single on the radio. I never really understood that. It's like, what are you talking about? If the song's good, then yes, you can.
I'm sure it has to do with people's attention spans and commercials and everything else. But I don't know how you would really trim this one down either.
I don't either, because you got to tell the whole story.
Correct.
And it's basically the classic story about a rock star. He's a kid. He's got big dreams, wants to get out of the mundane. Then he gets into a band. He shoots up to the top. Everything's going great. Except then, bottle of whiskey, sleeping pills by his head. That's how he died.
Right.
it's kind of the story of everyone who had died recently there. It's Jimi Hendrix, it's Jim Morrison, it's Janis Joplin, and it's kind of a cautionary tale, but it's also a warning. Don't do this. Don't let this happen to you, kind of thing. And because it's basically acoustic until they get into the chorus, it's a little spare, and it's kind of a matter-of-fact way of telling it. You're not romanticizing it with the way you're telling it. You're just kind of telling it, once Johnny was a schoolboy and he heard his first Beatles song. And from there, it didn't take him long, and he's off and running trying to become a rock and roll star from there. And so it has a place in rock and roll history to kind of say, yeah, this can happen. And in interviews, Kirk's like, yeah, we all dabbled. None of us are saints back in the day, but eventually you got to move on from that. You got to, it's great when you're in your 20s, everybody can have a little fun, but eventually you got to figure out that that's not the way to live. That's the way to die, basically.
Right. Yeah. It's not a recipe for any kind of longevity here. And even though it was pointed out that he was talking about, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, I think he was probably also talking about Paul Kossoff too, his buddy from Free, who his life just spiraled out of control. And yeah, it really is kind of sad. It's a song about a kid who wanted to be a rock star, got it, and then just basically threw his life away. That's right. The line about Johnny's life passed him by like a warm summer day. It always got to me.
I know. And
just that, like, oh, that was it. You came and you went. That was it.
Sleeping tablets by his head. Johnny's life passed him by like a warm summer day. If you listen to the wind, you can still hear him play. Don't you know that you are a shooting star? Don't you know?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think these may be the best lyrics that Paul Rodgers ever came up with.
Yeah, they hit pretty hard when you actually listen to them. Yeah, whereas, no offense, but some of this stuff on this record is a little light in the lyrics. This is pretty heavy duty. And even though it was not released as a single, to me this is the showpiece of the record.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think you're right about that. And it's acoustic throughout, and he's kind of telling the story. And then there's kind of the electric riff and wail kind of throughout. Don't you know? His voice is perfect for this kind of song. I saw an interview with Paul talking about how, when he wrote it, he's like, no one's ever really told this story about the fact that you're a shooting star. You come and you go, and that's very common in the business. He also said, if I had the time, I'd love to maybe try to make it into a musical, which you totally could do. You could certainly make, I don't know if you can make it into a 3-hour musical, but maybe. I mean, it definitely could be made into like a movie musical kind of thing, something that's like an hour and a half, something like that. But again, the storytelling style of it makes it more poignant. If you came out, Johnny was a schoolboy, and did a big rocker out of it, there's some great rocking parts in there. And I think Mick Ralphs does a really good job of wailing in spots like this. This is really, I think you're right, this is really the standout track of the album, and really one of the best songs they ever did.
I think for a band like this, it's easy to kind of gloss over this one, but when you actually go back and kind of pick it apart, this is pretty heavy duty, and he's talking about some real issues that are close to him, and I'm sure there were a ton of other people that you never heard of that met the same fate. So do you think about that with yourself too? Like, could I have done that? Could that have been me?
Was I going down the wrong path? Yeah. Because obviously by 1982 they broke up. Then they kind of carried on with a new lead singer without Paul for a while. Then in the late 90s they got back together. But then I think that was short-lived because Paul and Simon Kirke had kind of cleaned up. They're like, you know what? There's no way to live like this. I can't party like this. It's not good for me. I want out. But the other two were still on the party train. And it's like when two people are sober and doing that and the other two are just not, it doesn't work, and that's why it was pretty short-lived.
Yeah, especially from a business point of view, when you're 8 o'clock, I get up and, we have this meeting, and then you get these two other dudes that are like, oh man, last night was crazy. I'll see you around noon. Yeah, that's not going to work.
Like, you're in your 50s. Don't you want to get past this at some point, Also, an interesting story, in the 70s, Elvis, through his manager, sent Paul his autograph. And on it, he said, "Take time to live."
Okay.
And Paul said, well, that's interesting. I wonder, what does that mean? And Elvis died soon afterwards, So Elvis was a bit of a shooting star himself, right? I mean...
Yeah, probably, yeah. When you think about it, even though he probably had a longer life than most of these dudes... Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. He came when he never cleaned himself up.
Well, that's right. And he made basically every rock star mistake there is, and, married a teenager and had a bad businessman representing him and got into drugs. It's like, he's kind of a cliche in some ways there. But that is this first side of the album. That is pretty strong. First side of an album to me, and that's probably why it was so popular in the US. Now we flip it over and we get to songs that we didn't know very well. Some of them are good, some of them, we'll see. But Deal with the Preacher to kind of kick it off.
This shows you the importance of sequencing or tracking an album, because Shooting Star was, I mean, it's big, it's epic, but it's kind of a little bit of a bummer. The guy died and oh, that's sad. Okay, well, that's over with. Now you got to let's get back into this. Now you got to hit him with something that's upbeat. That's more of a straight ahead rock track. And it's pretty light. Like, the lyrics really don't do anything other than advance the song. So this one really kind of gets you back into listening to this record.
Yeah, it's a pretty good riff right there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good rocker. I like that bit of it. Actually, the guitar is pretty good throughout here, I think. I get the feeling, based on the lyrics, that he hooks up with a girl, and then in the morning it's like, yeah, I gotta go now. I don't know if it's with the preacher's daughter or not, because I can't make a deal with the preacher, and I can't make a bargain in heaven. Yeah. So it's like, I can't deal with the dude down here, but I can't deal, once I'm dead, I can't make a deal either. So I just kind of gotta keep moving. I think is what it's about. I'm not 100% sure that, I need the love, the kind I've never known before. You need it too. The kind that makes you feel so good. I want to give you all the love you need. Well, I'm a loner. That's the way I want to be. So as the sun climbs across the sky, smile filled me with a stronger love. But just so you know, I got to split. It's time for me to say goodbye. That's a typical rock star song too. Hey, love you, need you, gotta have you. Morning, yep, gotta go. Thanks.
This is not a sustainable business model here. We've got to, I got to move on.
Go ahead and enjoy the room. I got to split, It turns into a pretty good jam at the end, and would probably have been a pretty good live song to catch.
It sounds like there's two independent guitar parts going on, and I know Rodgers, he would play some on stage, so I'm wondering if that's how this worked with this one.
I'm not sure. I do think the solo is better than most everything on side one, though.
I would agree.
I feel like they've kind of turned it up a notch here. So even if the lyrics don't make 100% sense or it's a little ambiguous, I think the music is great. I don't know if it could have been a solo or not, but I think this is actually a pretty strong track. A good way to start the second half of the album.
Yeah.
Now, Wildfire Woman, which is also by Rodgers and Ralphs. This is straight up about sex.
I believe so, yes. That would be a correct.
Because they make it sound like he's driving to get to a woman he's going to bang out. He's taking the fast train to Pound Town, right? Is basically what the gist of the lyrics are. But then if you read it closer, I'm like, no. He's not talking about going to see the woman. He's talking about he's with the woman right.
We are currently
second
in the situation. Yes.
He is midstream. Yeah. Yeah. Takes a good man to know a good woman. I ain't so much a good man as one who needs lovin'. I'm a driving down the highway getting closer to your love. I'm going pretty fast now, but it ain't fast enough. Yeah. Wildfire woman's something that you got. I start to shiver when you do that. While fire shooting through my veins burns a fever to my brain. I just can't wait. Driving down the highway. Yeah, I'm driving all night. Start to shiver and shake. He's talking about the deed.
Takes a good man, yeah, to know a good woman. I ain't so much a good man as a woman needs love. Yeah. I'm a driving down the highway, getting closer to your love. I'm going pretty fast now, but it ain't fast enough. Listen. Wildfire shooting through my veins, burn the fever to my brain.
But you know what? This is kind of a little bit more mid-tempo than a fast rocker.
Mm-hmm.
And is this the first appearance of some slide from Mick Ralphs?
It's the first one I've heard, and it works in this record, or works on this track. The guitar's a little more muddy, and so it's got a different feel than the rest of the record. I'm not in love with the lyrics. Again, they're kind of just,
Yeah.
But I like the change up when he's talking about singing the chorus, wildfire woman, that it's different, and I kind of like the way that he does that. It kind of hooks nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do like the slide, and then they got a little bit of organ way in the back.
And I think Rodgers' voice is once again strong.
Yeah.
The lyrics may not be amazing, but his vocals are strong about this, no doubt about it. And the first lyric is, I'm going to drive my car way across the border because she's the only one. She keeps my mind in order. Again, that's an entendre.
Yeah.
He's not talking about a car. He's talking about something else. And that's why you do it in the 70s. Because now it's just like, I got my and I'm sticking it in her. You can do whatever you want on that front.
You had to be a little more subtle then.
It's like, whap. Okay, that's a hit song. Okay. Don't have to disguise it anymore. I got you. Just no poetry, just up in your face. I'm screwing. Yeah, okay, we get it.
Hi, this is Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
And then, once again, the third song on the side is a Simon Kirke, right? And it's a slow down song.
Right.
About a lady called Anna.
Mm-hmm. Which apparently wasn't very good the first time.
And I don't know where the first time is. Yeah. Please, somebody tell me that. There's Paul on the piano. And I do think the bass from Boz is pretty good on this. At first, I didn't like this. But then the more I listen to it, I'm like, you know what? This is a great song, a nice little song. It's not a great Bad Company song, but I do think I like it better than Weep No More.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. If you didn't know anything about anything and you said, who wrote this? I'm like, well, it's the drums seem to be featured a little more in this track. Actually, a lot more in this track. Well, it was written by the drummer. There you go.
That's
it's
right.
My time to shine. But again, it's interesting because it's different. It doesn't sound like anything else. It's cool that they let him put this on here, and you just get a little bit of a different flavor from the band.
Yeah, and Paul belts it out
Yeah.
pretty well. So, considering it's not his voice, he's doing it pretty well. But I know if she left me, my world would turn cold. She's the best little lady that a man could ever hold. When I'm down, she knows what to say. She clears my blindness away. What? Okay. I got a sweet little angel and I love her so. She's there when I need her. She understands when I say go. Go to the store. Just go faster while you're on top. Wait, what do you...
Just go in general. She knows what it means.
She gives me strength to carry on. I don't need anyone else. If I did, I would be fooling myself.
Yeah. I found me a simple woman. Found me a simple woman for a simple man. It's okay. It's not amazing, but the music I think is pretty good.
Yeah, and this is the second to last track on the record, so perhaps maybe got pushed down to the, you can put your other song on here. We're just going to go ahead and bury it down here second to the end.
Right, because the end song, Call on Me, which is a Rodgers write, is pretty long.
Yeah.
It's not horrible, but it is incredibly repetitive with the Call on Me bit. And it's Paul on the piano, and it's kind of a bit of a prolonged jam with Mick's guitar against Paul's piano and then a little scatting at the end there. It's just, I don't know, do they even play this live?
Probably
I feel
not.
like
you would have a hard time putting this one in the set. I mean, let's see, Shooting Star was 6:16. This is 6:03, so it's kind of long for the.
It feels longer though.
For the last track, yeah, and it's slow with the piano and.
Yeah, you're telling a story in Shooting Star. You're just saying "Call on Me" like 52 times on this one.
And if the thing is 6 minutes, but the last minute and a half is just the guitar wailing, or extended jam, okay, that's pretty cool. But like when it's this, it's, like you said, it's repetitive. It's okay, we get it. Let's go, moving on.
Yeah, and you do move on right off the record
to the end.
Oh, it's cold and hard, and the future is gray. You can always have the fire of love to keep you warm as the sun above. Call on me, call on me, call on me, call on me.
To the end. Now, the Whiskey Bottle, which was the B-side to Good Lovin' Gone Bad, it was a Rodgers, Ralphs, and Boz Burrell write. It's almost got like a boogie woogie. It's a piano song.
Yeah.
It's not really a hard rock song. It's got a little rock guitar over the top. It's not a bad song. I do feel like it's a B-side just because it doesn't really match the hard rock sound of the rest of the record.
Right, and that's what it could have been. They brought this thing in like, we can't fit this in. This
doesn't
too
fit.
Yeah, it's too strange.
I'm sitting here in Memphis, a whiskey bottle in my hand. I got to find a woman, I'm only on a one-night stand. I got to kick away these blues, got to get on my rock and roll shoes. I'm leaving in the morning, I'm heading for the promised land.
It's got some good hand claps on it. It's kind of a bar song.
Right.
And it's talking about being in Memphis and stuff, but it's a pretty good song. Now, there's two unreleased songs that were on the 40th anniversary reissue. One was All Night Long, which is kind of built off a similar riff of Good Lovin' Gone Bad. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a demo in that it's not it doesn't sound 100% finished to me. It's like we got along with this one and then we just decided, let's not, the guitar is kind of generic. It's not terrible, but it's not special. I feel like it's one that was like 80% done and they're like, okay, we're not going to put this on. Okay, just abandon it kind of thing. But the See the Sunlight song, I like this immediately. And this has cool slide on it from Mick. It's got some some organ on there, good power chords, a smooth Rodgers vocal. This should have been on the album.
So why wasn't it then? Then that's the key. What was it? Did it sound too much like another one? They couldn't figure out how to fit it in? I'm wondering if there was some jockeying with Kirke saying, hey, you've got to put my stuff in there. It can't be all, those other two guys. I don't know. I agree with you. I think this is a good song. I don't know why they left it off.
Baby, come and see the sunlight shining in the sky, and let the sunlight open up your eyes. Now is the time for love.
I don't know either. I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Actually, all four of them wrote Whiskey Bottle, just to correct my mistake there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All four get credit for that. And that's a good thing to put on a B-side. Like, okay, look, we're the best songwriters. Our song's going to be a hit. But everyone can share in the profits because we'll put the song from all of us on the B-side.
Yeah.
But this was Rodgers Ralphs. And maybe you're right. Maybe they're like and then, Ralphs is fighting for his independent songs. Rodgers is fighting for his independent songs too. Shooting Star is strong, Calling Me. I don't know if it is as strong, but I mean, they kind of follow the same formula for the most part. Kirke gets the third song on both sides. Rodgers gets the fourth song on both sides. And the rockers are the first couple songs on both sides. Yeah, they're kind of following a pattern there, but I think See the Sunlight is a really good song, and I wish they'd put it on the album because I'd never heard it before doing research for this show.
Although how much fun is that though? And we talk about this all the time, but how much fun is it to find a song like this where you're like, hey, wait a minute, I really like this. Why wasn't this on the record? I can listen to it now. I find something new. We also got to remember too that back then there really wasn't a whole lot of room to mess around or to add stuff because the vinyl was finite. You can't. Let's just put another track on it. You can't.
Right. It's only 38 minutes and a little bit of change here is the whole album, right? So you would have had to take something off, and while I can pick stuff to take off, I'm sure, the guys might have felt differently about it. Maybe it just didn't fit. I don't know. I think it's great, though. So for whatever it's worth, guys, I would have put this on over, well, I don't want to be nasty to Simon Kirke. I think you could have taken one of his off. I certainly think would have taken this over Call on Me.
Yeah.
I think it's better than everything on side 2, to be honest.
It wouldn't have been a bad way to end the record. So take Call on Me off and put this one on to end it.
Yeah. But
nobody asked us in 1975.
Yeah, because we were 2.
Just point to what you want.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's hard to follow up a huge debut that had big songs and classic songs on it and songs that people have now loved for a really long time that sold 5 million copies. But it did start, some people could say that it's the slide down because it sold 30 million versus 5 million. And then the next one, which was Run with the Pack the next year, sold 1 million. So, but the thing is, they're just, you tour, you record, you tour, you record, tour, you record.
So when you're out on tour, you're expected not only to be doing these shows and press and everything else, but also writing music for the next thing. Because you're right. You get home and a week and a half later, they expect you back in the studio.
Right. And then 77's Burning Sky only went gold. So you go from 5 times platinum to 3 times platinum to platinum to gold. That's diminishing returns. I think Desolation Angels did better, got them back up to platinum again, but that's a long time in the 70s. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of probably drugs, I'm going to guess, just guessing, and travel and girls and all the things that, in drips and drabs are fine, but if it's full time, it can be a lot. But because they were with Peter Grant, they were well taken care of. That's what Simon Kirke always talked about. Like, we were so well taken care of on the road. Nobody messed with us. We got great gigs. We always got paid. We got paid well on the albums. So they probably believed some of their own press. But look, I like Bad Company. This is them still on their way up as far as I'm concerned. And I do think that they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a strong follow-up. You always kind of have that make or break on the second record. I think that they definitely proved that they were a big-time rock act. And I don't know why, other than the fact that maybe, I don't know. They've got the record sales, they've got the singles. I don't know why they're not in the Hall of Fame, other than they just aren't sexy enough. I don't know.
Well, also because it's very political. If you put them in the Hall of Fame, you have to put in everybody, and they could just put in these 4 guys because they're the 4 guys. But they did have that kind of whole second life with Brian Howe in the 80s and into the 90s. Yeah. And actually, they did pretty well with him. And they had some pretty big hits in the 80s. Maybe Paul Rodgers I don't want that guy in. I don't want him to be a part of it. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't want to stand up on stage with the same dude. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, now here's the thing. Brian Howe might have passed away. Yeah, he did. He died in 2020. So that's not a problem anymore, necessarily him being on the same stage. But Dangerous Age did pretty well for them. No Smoke Without a Fire was a pretty big
I remember
hit.
That one.
And then the next one, Holy Water, it came out the next year. If You Needed Somebody and Holy Water were pretty big hits for them, and they, one went platinum, one went gold. So, they kept going while Paul was out doing The Firm and was then in The Law, which was not a great band.
Let's not talk about that.
But I mean, Feel Like Making Love and Shooting Star made it on the 10x6, the big, their kind of original greatest hits album, which sold a couple million records. You know, it kind of came out in, when was that? 1985, after the band was clearly done and after Paul had kind of started with The Firm. No songs by Burning Sky on that one, which is interesting. But I guess it was kind of the one that didn't do that great, although I like Burning Sky. I do like The Sky is Burning. I think it's a pretty good one. They probably should have thrown that one on there. But anyway, look, this is a solid album. They're still getting good returns here. I don't know how many more Bad Company albums we're actually going to review on this show, so enjoy this one, Bad Company fans. That's Straight Shooter, the second album by Bad Company. Everyone who listens to the show knows I love Paul Rodgers. I love his voice. And I think his songwriting was pretty strong on this one. Good Lovin' Gone Bad may have been Mick's song, but Feel Like Making Love he wrote with Paul. And Shooting Star's gotta be Paul's best ever lyrics. Great song, great story. I deal with the preacher that they did together. I still say See the Sunlight ought to be on the album. I can pick a few that could come off of there. But the point is, it's a solid second album for this supergroup, whose first album was fantastic. Certainly the best that they ever made. And it's hard to follow up something so strong. But they did a good job here. And they left some space for Simon Kirke to put in his slower, ballady kind of songs to show we're not just a rock band. We can do more. We are talented. And it's the 1970s, right? You could experiment back then. Their label mates, Led Zeppelin, had just put out Physical Graffiti. There's plenty of diversity of song on that incredible double album, which we reviewed on episodes 218 and 219. But I've always been a Bad Company fan, and I do think they deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we can all go on and vote. If you want to vote, you got to fork over your email to them, but then you can vote. You can vote on who should be in, and you can do it every day. So if you're a Bad Company fan, go out there and vote once a day. Get your friends to do it to help get them into the Rock Hall. At least they're a rock band. And you know Paul Rodgers on his own deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I encourage you to do it. And maybe listen to Straight Shooter and their whole catalog to remember how great they were. Who knows, maybe Jimmy Page will induct them. But we got to know, folks, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? You got to email us. You let us know. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You can let us know the bands, the albums, the tours, the concerts, the books, the DVDs, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about here on the show. Just make sure you download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you're thinking about it, folks, please go give us a 5-star review. It means the world to us. It helps us find more rock and rollers like you. And if you send it our way, we might just read it on an episode. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to our sponsor, RareVinyl.com, who has plenty of fantastic Bad Company, Relics, Paul Rodgers, Free, and Mott the Hoople, and all sorts of related products. Use that code UGLY. Save yourself 10% off one entire order. That's it for this week, folks. And we mentioned the Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti reviews earlier. Will there be more Zeppelin-related shows in the future? You'd say Bad Company's already one because they were on Swan song together. Well, I guess you'll just have to stay tuned and find out. Till next time. And to all you rock and rollers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.